Welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have participants from different parts of the world, whether you're joining us live or watching us later on. Thank you for being with us for another session of the Spiritism Talk series, promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, held every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is my pleasure to host today's talk presented by Glaucio Pessoa, who will be speaking on the topic, the imperative of inner peace. Let's all give Glaucio a very warm welcome. And before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce him. Glaucio is the co-founder and one of the directors of the Caritas Spiritist Group. Formerly, he was a board member of the U.S. Spiritist Federation and vice president of the Christian Spiritist Community of Atlanta. Professionally, Glaucio is a senior technical program manager in the fields of AI, machine learning, and cloud computing. Please feel free to send your questions at any time during the presentation today using the chat window. Glaucio has set aside time at the end to address your comments and questions. And now, Glaucio Pessoa.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks so very much for introducing me. So we're going to be talking about the imperative of inner peace. Before we start, I'd like to, today we're celebrating Valentine's Day in the US. And Valentine's Day is interesting because it is a celebration, of course, of romance and love and relationships as well. And it is very important that when we are in any kind of relationship, being it, of course, a romantic relationship, be it a professional relationship, as a friendship, as your neighbor, that we recognize that there's always a chance of conflict. A very prime example of this is actually in Paul wrote on 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 13. So I'm going to read two versions, the New International Version that goes like this. Hold them in the highest regard in love because of their work. Live in peace with each other. In the King James Version, we see, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among ourselves. So there's an interesting story about this particular passage. So basically, the church of Thessalonica was founded around between 50 and 51 AD by Paul, Silas, and Timothy. And there's an interesting aspect of it because it was a small community. And right after the time when Paul founded it, actually he was expelled from the city, not by the community, by the Jews of that time that saw the Christianity as an affront or as a challenge to their belief. But again, the most important aspect of it is that, of course, Paul leaves Thessalonica. He had originally spent like a year and a half establishing that group, and right after that, there was a lot of conflict amongst that small community. I mean, amongst those church leaders and those individuals. And it's a interesting because Paul writes to them and say, first of all, hey, respect the church leaders, show some appreciation for those people who are working and try to coordinate with you this community. So that was a first reminder. That's why he says, hey, have them in high regard. If someone is trying to do something good, of course, that individual is imperfect. Of course, that individual is going to be making mistakes and not pleasing everybody, but it is somebody who is volunteering her time or his time or her time to do something good for that organization. Another point also is that Paul mentions to everybody, hey, live in peace with one another. So he's emphasizing the unity that the community needs to have. Again, it was a relatively new community. And there were internal conflicts over there. So again, there's this important reminder of Paul, but it was written again for the Thessalonians, and explains, hey, just try to, just try to be nice to one another and to help, and especially protect about against discord as well. And we see this, Paul in his letters, he's very always reminding us, hey, stop quarreling, and within different churches as well, not only Thessalonica, because there's an importance when you have a mission, when you have a higher up mission. Why should you be spending time on quarrels? Why should you be spending time on disagreements? On a lot of on aspects that, when you think the grand scheme of things of what you're trying to accomplish, those small arguments, they do not help. And so we see here that the need for us to have the recognition of the value of the spiritual labor, that has to be above everything. The mission in that case was specific to the church in Thessalonica, but applies to any kind of organization we are in. Try to be harmonious. Of course, there are going to be disagreements, but again, you can disagree, but still keep an atmosphere of understanding and friendship, and especially peace. Because again, there is this certain, we are all here as laborers in this in the great scheme of things, which is the universe. Very importantly, again, Paul is reminding us of this very practical aspect of Christianity, because instead of being teaching this high theological, high theoretical concepts about Christianity, he's just standing as part of his letter. He's reminding people, hey guys, let's just try to understand. Let's try to have let's improve their relationship. Let's keep the relationship at a higher level, so that in that case the church can accomplish that mission. And what I like about it is that it applies, of course, it applied back then to the Church of Thessalonica. It applied to other organizations, Christian organizations in this particular context, but applies to not only any other religious organization, but it applies to any group we're part of. Of course, applies to our families, applies to our workplaces, applies to our communities, neighborhoods. So, and even in a nation, in a country, it's as a whole, and as a world as a whole. So we might not always agree with one another. Actually, that is part of our development, is actually to have the disagreements, because through disagreements we exchange ideas, and there's an opportunity for us to enrich one another, presenting different points of view. The challenge becomes now when it breaks, when it breaks the harmony, and when it hinders that particular group from performing the mission, the main mission that might be. In our case, as we live as individuals, our mission is to progress, and we progress through learning. And having this, and again, disagreements are fine, but when those disagreements become conflicts, and when those disagreements, they hinder our ability to progress and to help one another, that becomes a true issue. And you can think of any, again, in any aspect of in any organization that you can be, in any group that you can be, there are opportunities for disagreements. There are opportunities for the peace to be broken, but also there are so many constructive opportunities that you have if there is proper, respectful communication. Just because an individual thinks differently from us, that individual is not should not never be considered as our opponent or as our enemy. On the contrary, it is someone that most likely has the best of intentions as well. And all we have to do is to communicate, to exchange our ideas, and reach common ground. And again, having this trying to be in peace, it's definitely a step towards that. Now, one might be asking, so how can I live? How can I be in a world? How can I be in harmony? How can I be in peace in a world where there is so many conflicts at a larger scale. And that's Kardec does answer that in the Spirit's book. He has a whole section about war, and actually he discusses war and peace. And in question 742, he asks the Spirit point blank, "What drives human beings to war?" And you might think, human beings are driven to war by political interests. They are driven to war by economic interests as well, or even in some cases, unfortunately, religious interests, and can be driven by all kinds of ulterior motives. But the spirits actually they clarified right on that those are more like the symptoms. And the way that the spirits explain to us is human beings go to war because of the overpowering of the animal nature over the spiritual nature and the fulfillment of their passions. In the barbaric state, humans only recognize the rights of the strongest. This makes war their normal condition. As men and women develop, war becomes less frequent because they avoid the causes that lead to it. And when it is inevitable, they wage it more in a more humane manner. So it's a very interesting answer because, again, the spirits could have said, "Oh, it's because of geopolitical or economic and other reasons," but the spirits say, "No. That the true cause is still the fact that we have a lot more connection, a lot more affinity with our spiritual nature and our passions." And when we were in a barbaric state, which, by the way, we're not too far from, we still see the rights of the strongest. And that's why we see conflict as a normal. But again, as spirits, as we develop, then we see the occurrence of war less frequent because now we are addressing the causes of those. And even if you find yourself in a conflict, you can still wage that. You can still be involved in that conflict in a humane manner, which sounds like a oxymoron, but again, not be so not cause devastation to the other side. And of course, we're talking about war here, but it applies to any kind of conflict. How many times are we involved again with conflicts with one another? And the true cause is not so much a material dispute, but a lot more has to do with our pride. So a lot more it would make sense for us to just give in a little bit and promote peace and well-being. And Kardec continues asking you because Kardec loved to probe the spirits and get more details. And he asks in question 743, "Will wars ever end on Earth?" And the spirits explain yes, when human beings understand justice and practice God's law. Only then will men and women be brothers and sisters. So I like this here because, again, the spirits are not talking about any kind of material motives that would lead human beings to war. Actually, they're reminding us that when I think, when I am work, when I understand justice, true justice, not the selfish justice that a lot of times we seek, but true justice. And we practice God's law, the moral laws, the laws of the universe. So only so that's when we're going to see each other as brothers and sisters. And again, alleviate our conflicts or altogether eliminate conflict. And again, Kardec continues here in question 744. What is God's purpose of making war necessary? So again, we see war. We have been, there are conflicts happening right now as we speak of different scales. And again, so what happens? And the spirits indicate it's freedom and progress. We can understand the point as far as progress because it is a fact that armed conflict does does foster technological development. A lot has been developed during conflicts, especially during major conflicts. But why freedom? Why do you mention freedom as well? So again, and Kardec says, okay, so you mentioned freedom. What is it that you mean by that? So he asks again, as part of that same question, if war brings us freedom, why does it often entail the slavery or oppression of the people attacked? And the spirits indicate the oppression is short lived and serves to make the people grow tired of their enslavement, pushing them to advance more rapidly. So, even if we're in a situation of war and a particular nation or people end up being subjugated, then there is even a drive for advance as well. They get tired of that situation. They try to get out of that situation, and also there are so many opportunities for development. Again, both intellectual and moral. And finally, here in question 745, Kardec asks, so what should we think of those who instigate war for their own profit? And the spirits indicate such individuals are severely guilty and suffer many physical lives to atone for all the deaths they caused. They will have to answer for every human being who has been killed to satisfy their ambition. So I really like this particular section here and the questions from Kardec, trying to get more information about war. But the bottom line here is the spirits are clarifying to us that what's behind war, what's behind conflict, is us, is our inner self. The moment that when we overcome our necessity, the moment we overcome our animal, our barbaric inclinations, then war will no longer be part of our reality. And again, we can think about it about nations and about different peoples and different historical contexts. But the most important thing is, again, what is it that in me, right? What is it that in me that is causing conflict? And again, I can think of a large scale, but again, let's bring it down several levels and think as I deal with one another, as we deal with our brothers and sisters here, both incarnate and disincarnate. What is it in me that might be causing conflict? What is it in me that is making me have either an offensive or a defensive attitude towards those that surround me? So again, we should a lot be thinking as the spirits indicate here. So am I putting to practice God's laws? Am I putting to practice? Am I understanding and applying justice to the better of my abilities? So instead of us being projecting the cause of any kind of conflict in our brothers and sisters, we should take a step back and think, what is it in myself that I'm doing that might be causing conflict? Or what is it that I'm doing that I'm not avoiding conflict? And again, I like the way the spirits explain to us in the spirits book that again, war is a condition a lot that has to do with us, with our inner selves, and with our need for development. And as such, we see as humans, we've always had this tendency of turning our disagreements into conflicts. Again, I really like the example the excerpt from the letter to the Thessalonians, because again, Paul back then around 1970 years ago, he was already addressing a group of people and reminding them, hey, please work in harmony for the better good. So that applies to us nowadays as well. Work in harmony. There is no need for us, and we unfortunately we see that a lot in our dealings with brothers and sisters. The fact that unfortunately we are put into circumstances in which dealing with others and having a different points of view might lead to endangering to disharmonizing relationships. And Paul was reminding us way back then, hey, listen, try to live in peace with one another so that we can all grow and learn from one another. And then we might be asking ourselves, okay, but I might try to do just that. I might try to live in peace and be harmonious, but that's not what I see. That's not the reality that I see around me. I see, of course, not only so much conflict um, among nations, but I also see conflict among people as well. So why should I do it? It's so hard for me to be in peace, especially having inner peace under those circumstances. However, we see that Jesus addressed just that when he was referring to the so-called quiet place. And it is basically, it was written in Mark chapter 6, verses 31 and 32. And he said unto them, come ourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into a desert place by ship privately. So in this particular passage here, what was going on is that the disciples, again, volunteering their time, volunteering their energy, they were assisting Jesus in the dissemination of the gospel, and they were very busy. And they're surrounded by people, and there was all this commotion because people are trying to learn more about the message. And at some point, Jesus tells them, "Hey, listen, you need to have time for yourself. You have to be in a desert place and rest for a while. So give yourself a moment." There was all these people coming and going, and so far you hadn't had a break, but uh, give yourself some time, detach yourself from that. And we see that, right? Of course, it's not possible. It's very hard for us to breathe in a climate of perfect peace among everybody. And there is a lot of ignorance and bellicosity uh, that predominates in the human path. And when we talk about ignorance and bellicosity, we tend to think about everybody else and except for us. But you know what? We are very ignorant, and we're very and bellicosity is something that it is in us as well. So, however, it is important for us to take that time and and to seek inner serenity in the face of all conflicts that might be around us, and and seek that, and to seek to detach ourselves. An interesting phenomenon with social media is that we are being exposed to information all the time, and that has a lot of positives, but has a lot of negatives as well. Because as before, um, let's say 35 years back, for instance, I could, for me to be exposed to some information, for me to be exposed to conflict, for me to be exposed with people who have very strong points of view that disagree with me, I would have to walk and I'll have to physically be with people. And now with social media, I can basically be exposed to those different ideas and facts and circumstances 24/7. So it's important for me to the advice that is in Mark. It is important. It was imperative back then. It is imperative right now. Let's make sure we give ourselves a break. Why should I be checking the last posting, the latest X post by someone I agree with or someone I disagree with? Right. So it's important for us to give my time to give my time as well. Give my time to have this inner peace, and which can be achieved in different manners. And one of them is disconnecting myself from any kind of stimuli that may be endangering that peace. So again, that's why this message was of relevance for all the disciples, but it's still timeless as well. So there's this need for us to learn to have this place apart, and where you can find a constructive rest for us, especially. And again, it's up to me also to make it constructive. Being quiet, that doesn't mean just silence. It means also that in my mind, I got to use that time to connect with the divine. And again, this place apart that Jesus was mentioning, of course, it was in those circumstances for the disciples, it was a physical place. However, it is an intimate sanctuary that I have for myself. And we are all, in the end, we're all in our stage, as in our stage of imperfection, we're all thirsting for the divine light. All of us are always that, always in need to have again this connectivity, this rapport with with God and with our spiritual benefactors as well. Therefore, it is not an internal location. It is an internal location and not somewhere physical. And again, Jesus was not necessarily talking about being isolated from everyone, but have this silent chamber within ourselves, and be disconnected from the world, disconnected from all these conflicts, all this disharmony that be surrounding us. So I could be anywhere I want. I can be in any physical place, but if I'm in my mind, I am still having um, um, thoughts, and in myself, I'm still harboring feelings that are not harmonious. Then what's the point? Conversely, I can be in a group of people. A lot of times, it is hard for us to be away from our brothers and sisters. We live in society, and the law of society again is one of God's laws. So that means that I have to be among all the spirits. So it's important for me to, wherever I am, have this inner peace in myself. To work towards having this inner peace in myself, regardless of the circumstances, and hopefully, even within my imperfections, be an element that brings peace to those as well. An interesting thing along those same lines is that a lot of times we might feel maladjust. We might feel a little bit out of place. If we are in we are in a group that is not harmonious, if we try to bring harmony, if we try to do good in that particular congregation of individuals, it might you might feel a little bit odd, and others might have also. And but again, there is a and you we might feel isolated as well. However, we should continue promoting peace in those, because again, that is one. If we're being put in that circumstance, and it can be again can be a disharmonious spiritist center, it can be a complicated family, it can be a workplace where people do not collaborate. It can be a tough neighborhood. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is, what am I doing under those circumstances? And if I'm there for a reason. So, I should do my best to be a bringer of peace, being a bringer of harmony, even if the group that I'm associated with thinks otherwise. So always this temple that of the soul, it is always there for us. It is an opportunity that we have to revigorate our forces, our exhausted forces, and it is our chance to have this divine meeting, this divine connection with the divine. To have this connection with the divine, right? It's a meeting place that I have, and again, the good thing is that it is available to me regardless of where I am. At some point in our history, there was this understanding. As humans, we understood this deserted place as being in a monastery or in a wilderness. Nothing wrong. I mean, if you are in a monastery, that's nice. And if you're in the wilderness, yeah, enjoy it. But again, make sure that it is not just a deserted. It's not just a place, but the most important thing is my retreat that I have in myself. And again, put that in practice. Put in practice whatever. we're always studying. Of course, we're spiritists here, but regardless of your belief system, you're always studying, you're always learning. So make sure you put it in practice. Make sure that you are an emissary of peace and harmony wherever you are. And again, that is putting really into practice. So I like here also in the book Homem Integral, the Integral Man by Joana de Angelis, psychographed by Divaldo Franco in chapter 5, when Joanna is talking about loneliness. And she has it's a great book, and she has some very interesting aspects of loneliness. And sometimes we're so afraid of being alone. We're so afraid of not being accepted by the social group that we are associated with. But Joanna does remind us that silence, spontaneous isolation are very healthy for the individual and can allow him or her to reflect, study, and self improve, and to revise concepts regarding life and inner peace. So, what Joanna is in a sense also making this reference to this inner, to this quiet place inside of us where we can sit down, take a moment, and reflect and think. First of all, connect with the superior spheres, but most importantly, also take a step back and self-assess. Think about, hey, what is it that I need to improve on, or what is it that I could take this time to study or to improve? What is it that my relationship with a particular individual is so complicated? What is it I can do to improve that? And I guess so we need to have those moments of reflection and to ponder about where we are right now and where we will be. So, as everybody knows, there is that famous inscription in the Oracle of Delphi that read, "Know thyself." Actually, there are very interesting inscriptions. There was one of them, the most famous one. But the interesting thing about it is that you would read, there's this inscription, "Know thyself," which is very important for us to know ourselves. And right behind it, there was another inscription that read, "Know where you came from," as well. So it's kind of like for us to reflect, okay, I have to know who I am, my imperfections, basically what is it I'm doing right, what is it that I can improve on, what is it I need to study more. Also think about who I was, or how far along have I come, or think about the steps of my journey as well. So it's interesting that the Oracle of Delphi had those two inscriptions. Of course, the most famous one, "Know thyself," but there's also one which was like right on the opposite side, right, where you right in front of it, but on the opposite side, I read, "Know where you came from" as well. It is interesting now because as we go, we reflect upon ourselves, and we understand that each one of us is kind of like our own government. Each one of us has each one of us has its own powers that are translated in our senses and perceptions. And people can force us. The world can force us to take, or we can define ourselves in any circumstances. But in the end of the day, it is up to me to make decisions and act or react. And again, based on my free will. And by the way, the law of liberty is one of God's laws as well, as one of the laws of the universe, which confers us the free will for our options. And the way that we it is within ourselves the power to take action or not, and to act towards the limited the legitimate good. And when we understand that, going back to Kardec and question 742, war will be banished from the planet when us as humans we're able to look into ourselves and have the same control. Again, according to the spirits, war as externally as express itself, it starts with us. So if I want to live in a world that is peaceful, I should not wait for the government, for the government, for instance, for the nations, um, and for my brothers and sisters to promote peace. I should start promoting peace within myself. So it is necessary that especially if I consider myself a little bit more knowledgeable. An interesting thing about here on Earth is that some of us are more evolved than others, but on average, we're kind of like about the same. And except for, of course, for those spirits that come here as missionaries, but on average, we're all about the same. We are more elucidated in some aspects than others, compared to other brothers and sisters. But as far as the evolutionary level, we're about the same. However, if I have a little bit of knowledge, and especially the knowledge that Spiritism provides to us, so it gives me a chance also to serve as a promoter of peace. And again, I even within my imperfections, why not, right? So we're studying Spiritism, and all the amazing works that have been brought to us by different spirits. So why not put that in practice in our relationships? Speaking of which, we perceive the world based on our senses. So we perceive the world based on our vision and what we hear, even what we taste, and of course, from a spiritual standpoint, also based on our spiritual perceptions as well. But it doesn't matter. In the end of the day, everything we see goes through our own perception, from our own point of view. And this is a very important aspect of edifying uh, pacifism around us. And because we hear, we see, again, we perceive the world based on our inclinations, and a lot of times not based on reality. So whenever we register information, and we have to take a step back, because that also helps us promote peace as well, promote our inner peace, is to try to understand the circumstances around us, trying to understand how our brothers and sisters act, understand the circumstances that are around me. Again, I have a chance to process it, and I'm going to process it, doing again based on my imperfections, and on the little small virtues that I have. And of course, being imperfect spirits, of course, our spiritual, our moral defects, they are a lot more pronounced. But it's still, whenever we are in an environment, we have a chance also to always take a step back. As complex and as difficult our relationships with one another, as difficult as our relationships as a community, as a nation, as the world, I always have an opportunity to take a step back and to realize and to analyze those circumstances. And a lot of times before, for instance, before if I'm dealing with someone who I consider difficult, it is important for me to take a step back and see, okay, what is it that I can do to diffuse this situation? It might be that difficult individual actually he or she is reacting due to circumstances that I might have created, or there could be also a misunderstanding. So again, instead of me disturbing myself, instead of me getting in tune with that conflict, it is important for me now to process what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm perceiving, to better act, and again be a promoter of peace. So what is it, the circumstance? Is it going to be are we going to be searching the light, or are you going to be searching the darkness? Are we going to be a promoter of a reflective, harmonious atmosphere, or am I going to be also going to be installing chaos? Again, I have to take this moment, and again goes back um, to this quiet place, even in conflict, even a different situation, going back into this quiet place and think, okay, how is it that I can best act here as a spiritist and as a Christian? And if the circumstance is out of my control, what is it that I can learn, and how can these circumstances help me progress as well? And again, it is not possible. We are very imperfect, but again, to the best of our abilities, it's important for us to create the serenity around us, and as opposed to taking actions that promote conflict. And without this at least attempt of having a calm reaction, or a calm understanding, it is impossible to be a spiritist. It is impossible to be a true Christian. When I say that, not so much in what I know, but going back to putting what I know into practice. And that's why the story from Paul in the beginning, the passage to Thessalonica, is so important, because those individuals, they're being exposed. They were some of the, at that time, they were again some of the first spirits, incarnated spirits, who were being exposed to Christianity. So why not put that into practice for their betterment? Why not put that to practice to promote peace? And then again, so without this peace, without the peace that starts within us, we'll never reach circles of true peace. So if I look for peace outside and not peace inside, it's very, very hard for me to perceive and to feel myself in peace. Uh, to finalize our conversation, I'd like to read a story that I like very much. It is in the book Among Brothers of Other Lands. It's chapter 24. And basically, I really recommend this book, Among Brothers of Other Lands. And basically, in 1965, the Spiritist mediums of Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, they traveled to several countries, including the United States, England, and France. And basically, the idea was to exchange knowledge with other spiritists throughout the world. And during those travels, they did receive several messages. Interestingly enough, the first half of the book was again from different countries, and messages were received in Portuguese. But the second half, actually, the messages were received in English. It's very good, very interesting book. So you can. It was published in the U.S. in English by Edisei America in 2011. A very good read. But again, without further delay, so I'm going to read this very interesting story. It's called "The Furniture," and it's brought to us by the spirit Hilario Silva. So I'm going to read the story, and then I'll make some comments. So here's how the story begins. The truck had stopped in front of a large supermarket on 48th Street in New York, where Doug Sanford worked. A bachelor of 50 years of age, Sanford was known for being a distinguished and hardworking spiritist. For this very reason, noticing that he was accompanying, somewhat worried, a precious Austrian furniture that the vehicle was transporting, Bobby Bast approached him, a work colleague and companion in faith, observing curiosity. So we see this individual, Doug Sanford, a spiritist, and we see in front of his workplace there is this truck that's transporting some furniture. And one of his friends, one of his coworkers, and also spiritist, Bobby Best, he notices the truck, and he notices that how worried Doug was. This is what he comments. "You're right to carefully protect the species. And kerosene mirrors, chandeliers, cushions, and curtains," he added. "What a beautiful furniture! Ah, if I could, I would buy one just like it. What good taste." Since Doug said nothing, Bob returned to the subject. "Look at the high reliefs, admirable filigree, and how happy I would be if I possessed such treasure. You naturally understand me." Doug only affirmed, "Yes, yes." So you see, the truck stopped, right? Doug is inspecting the truck. Well, of course, the furniture is going to be taken somewhere. His friend notices that he's really he's really taking very good care of this very expensive furniture, and he says, "Okay, this is amazing. I mean, you have very good taste." I wish I had this furniture. And but Bob notices that Doug is not so much concerned about it, about the quality of the furniture. Doug is more concerned about the furniture being taken away. So, seeing this, Bob asks directly, "Where are these rarities going?" And his friend replied, "They are going to a home for the less fortunate elderly people." "My God!" shouted Bob, astonished. "Who made such a donation? Where does all this wealth come from?" And Doug says, "This furniture was bought by my grandparents. It belonged to my mother, who recently passed away, and it is finally leaving the house." So a very interesting detail, right? Because they say, okay, this belonged to my grandparents. It was with my mom, so it's a very important heirloom. But now it's finally leaving the house, where I'm finally getting rid of it. And his friend asks, "Why would you say that?" And Doug replied, so that now here's the explanation behind it. "I have two married sisters who began fighting over it with such ambition that their husbands, revolvers in hand, threw themselves at each other last week, to the point of wounding one each other, and all of us being detained by the police. With great sacrifice, I acquired all this material to offer it to the needy elderly people. Without doubt, it is a relic of our grandparents' good taste." And watching the maneuvers of the departing vehicle, so finally the truck is leaving, right? So Doug concluded, "But every material relic, when capable of disturbing the family or destroying our peace of mind, should leave our environment with God's mercy." So, by the way, this message was brought to us again by Hilario Silva in New York on July 1st, 1965. I like this story because again we see this material possession, very beautiful, very rare, but it was bringing disharmony to the family, to the point in which there was a very serious conflict, a very serious argument, and people got hurt, and the police got involved. So it was bringing chaos. So the moral of the story that I gather here is that you should always look for peace. Doesn't matter if you're arguing about any religious or political aspects, or if you're having or if you're fighting over something material as furniture, or in this case, very expensive furniture, real estate, a job position. What we see here is that nothing compares to your inner peace. Nothing compares to having good relationship with your family, with your loved ones, with everybody else. That is priceless, because again, any material possession, any material position, and even our political and even religious positions, they're also secondary compared to the eternal reality of our spirits. And with that, I'd like to conclude, and I'm ready to address any comments or questions.
Thank you ever so much, Glaucio, for sharing your insightful reflections and that delightful story with us today. Everyone, please stay with us for the Q&A session, which will begin shortly after a few announcements. We invite you to follow us on our social media channels to stay updated on upcoming events and activities. And don't forget to visit the United States Spiritist Federation bookstore at spiritisbooks.us, where you'll find a wide selection of Spiritist books, including several exciting new releases. And be certain to check out a wonderful new release entitled Joan of Arc, Medium by Leon Denis. And if you work with Spiritist youth or are interested in educational resources, be certain to explore the Family, Youth, and Children's Spiritist Federation, FYCSE website at spiritismkids.us, where you'll discover excellent materials and ideas for youth educators. And please take a few moments to check out the Be My Hope app, which offers inspiring daily messages to uplift your spirit. It's very helpful and is available for free on both the App Store or Google Play. Now, let's turn our attention to your comments and questions. There's still time to send yours, so please feel free to share your thoughts. And so, for the first question from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, how might we have a balanced discourse today and maintain our emotions?
I would go back to the answer provided by the spirits, and the need for us to see our all of us, right? See humanity, see one another as brothers and sisters. So it is hard, I know, because sometimes you listen to arguments that are not very logical from some people. We see some people very set in their ways, and the mistake that we tend to make is to see that individual as an opponent and not necessarily as another soul that is evolving. Interestingly enough, none of us here on earth know much. We're all kind of the same level again as far as knowledge, except again for those very advanced spirits, which for the most part, it is not my case. For instance, so listen, 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 be respectful, see that individual as a brother or a sister. I myself, I do not argue because again, it tarnishes the relationship and it breaks my inner peace as well. And again, I have, of course, we all have our ways. We follow our ways. Keep doing what's right, and be a promoter of peace, even with those that completely disagree with us. All of us are evolving together. In my, each one of us has his or her own path. The reason why I see things, I see it is based on my background, both here on this reincarnation and from my previous lives. And the same applies to our brothers and sisters as well. So be a promoter of peace.
Good thoughts. Thank you, Glaucio. And from Daniel Santos, how does Paul's emphasis on guarding the mind align with modern concepts of mental health? Can inner peace truly exist without a disciplined control over our thought patterns?
I think goes back to the concept of our senses. So how do I filter? How do I process the world around me? And I like the concept again, guarding your mind, making sure that, of course, I cannot control what I see, I cannot control what I hear, and of course, there is this whole psychosphere around me. But the same way that I can tune in to the right vibrations, to the right fluids, but based on my own inner state, I can also process the world around me on my inner state as well. So there's this importance of guarding your mind, not letting the outside world uh, uh, the outside world dictate how I feel and how I act or react. Had taken going back to that inner place, the inner place that Jesus was talking about, and again taking the time to process. And of course, inner peace cannot exist without this discipline control. Inner peace, again, is not something external. The world around me, for the most part, I cannot control. What I can control, again, is how I process the information that reaches me.
Mhm. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Glaucio. And from TVCEI, how does practicing charity contribute to inner peace?
First of all, putting what I learned to practice, right? I mean, we study, of course, we're spiritists. We study spiritism. We study Christianity, the teachings of the gospel. Putting that into practice is a first step as well. Um, and the corollary of that is when I practice peace, not be judgmental of others. That's a very good exercise. So, for instance, a prime example is when you serve, for instance, meals to the homeless. unfortunately, when you are exposed to the homeless, there's a risk that you're going to judge those individuals, because you're going to see individuals who, quote unquote, apparently they are young, sometimes young individuals. You see individuals, it's interesting, you see homeless individuals of all walks of life, of all nationalities, ethnicities. And when you're being charitable, you have a chance not to be judgmental of those and try to understand, try to think why could have led someone to be in that situation. So, of course, when again, just to summarize, when we of course, when we practice charity, we are acting in accordance to God's law. We are being laborers in the universe for the good of the universe. And also, we have a chance to be exposed to our brothers and sisters and have an opportunity to try to comprehend, to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes as well. So that gives us some insights. And I do not want to take too long in the question, but sometimes when you're doing good for someone, you might be thinking, what would take, that could have been me. That could be what it would have taken someone to be in that situation. So it gives me a chance also to do some insights and think, okay, what is it that I'm doing also wrong, that could be wrong or that could be improved, and what is it that I'm doing right as well, and also what I could be doing not to be judgmental of others and trying to have a better perception and a more constructive outlook of the world.
Very helpful thoughts. Thank you. And from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, is our animal nature stronger than our spiritual nature? If so, how can we change the balance?
We are still closer to our in the spirit book. It talks about the animal state. I'm trying to remember if it's the animal state or the original state, the natural state. So the spirit books talks about the natural state, which is like our beginning. So when we are very where our instincts, that's what controlled our actions. So we're still closer to that than we are to divinity. So that's the tendency. That's the tendency for these animal urges to promote, to take charge. So yeah, so that's the tendencies for them to be stronger. And how can you change the balance? Now there's this interesting tale that talks about the two wolves inside of you. So there's this tale talks about the two wolves that inside of you. One wolf is for the good, and the other one, quote unquote, evil, right? And the question is, and they're always in conflict. They're always like trying to push each other to the side. And the question is, which one do you think is going to prevail? And the answer is which one you feed, right? So if you promote your bad tendencies, of course if you promote your animalistic side, of course it's gonna prevail. It's gonna take charge. It's going to have a greater impact on the divine side of you. So again, it is going to depend on you to promote which one. And of course, it is in our best interest, because when we follow God's laws, that's when we promote this less instinctive side of us. Now, our instincts, they are still very necessary. We still need to have, we still have to have fear in a lot of circumstances, and sometimes we have to take action, and be more assertive as well. So those are still, we still live in a world where you have to be. Now, even when Kardec mentions when you are in a circumstance of that, there's no escape, you have to be in a conflict. Make sure that even those circumstances, you're more humane about it as well.
Good suggestion. Good points. Thank you. And from Spiritual Society of Baltimore, to what extent is our internal quiet dependent on our external efforts to resolve conflict with others? Can one truly have inner peace while remaining in a state of bitterness toward a neighbor?
Yeah. So again, Jesus did mention that as well. he did advise us to first reconcile with our so-called enemies before doing this offering to God. So the importance for us to reconcile, the importance for us to addressing our bitterness, and that's that's the whole point. How can I have inner peace if I'm harboring these sentiments towards my brothers and sisters? So try to work those out, and again, we always, again, we're so imperfect. It is very hard for us not to having in conflicts or not having in disagreements with one another. But again, how I process that is the key. I cannot control how individuals act, and I cannot control if all of us have free will. So if an individual wants to take an aggressive posture against me, I cannot control that individual. What I can control is how am I going to respond to that. People can do different actions, and they can take some actions against me, and a lot of times they can actually hurt me in different aspects. Now, the freedom, the most important freedom that I have is the freedom of my attitude. What kind of attitude, what kind of posture am I going to do? And we're really running out of time, but a very good book is Man's Search of Meaning, which is not a spiritist book. Is by Viktor Frankl, who was in a concentration camp, by the way. And he writes his stories from this very philosophical, his experience in the concentration camp in a very philosophical aspect. And he does mention that, say, hey, people can do different things to you. You can be in a concentration camp and you can still have a positive attitude. People can incarcerate you, they can do different actions against you because that's their free will, but you have the free will to have the right attitude and to try to do things right.
Wonderful, wonderful. And for the U.S. Spiritist Federation, what one thinks becomes reality as is natural. This is why thinking and acting are terms of the same existential equation. So, how do thoughts influence our ability to maintain inner peace?
So everything starts in the mind. It's an interesting concept that anything you can think of, it started because somebody thought about it. Any the most amazing edifications, the most amazing projects, they start because somebody thought about them. And the same thing about the biggest mistakes, the biggest errors, the biggest atrocities, even to say that as human beings we've committed. Somebody thought about those things. So again, your thought's going to be the driver before how we act. So we see here that when in the gospel, when it talks when Kardec talks about love, think that when we begin, all we had was instincts, but then at some point we have sensation, we have instinct sensations, and then love. So again, there's this whole evolution of me that is steering away from my instincts in going towards the sublime. So my thoughts are going to drive how I'm going to act. And especially when we think about also, of course, we're talking about material, but also in the spiritual world as well. My thoughts are gonna be a projection. So even if I can say, and that's why inner peace is so important in myself, meaning my insights are important, because I may be giving everybody the impression that I forgave someone, that I was not offended, but in the end, if I was offended and if I continue having bitterness towards somebody, that means I'm also going to be projecting all this negativity towards someone, to an individual who made a mistake. So again, my mind processes the circumstances. The world will present to me different nuances. And my senses are going to be impressed. My thought, my thought has a chance to process and to digest that, and to have a positive spin, or a positive, and drive positive outcomes regardless of the situation.
Very good. And For our final question from TVCEI, how might Paul today suggest achieving a more harmonic nature with all the distractions of social media and TV?
Interesting. So again, live, be in peace. Be in peace with all the distractions, or be in peace regardless. Again, the beauty of all the media that we've been exposed. I mean, of course, we're talking about social media now, and some years back it was radio, and of course TV at some point, just the plain old internet of the 90s and 2000s, and now social media. So we have all the information. We have an opportunity to have so much information that is basically ubiquitous to us. So being in peace, select those pieces of information that are constructive to us, as opposed to looking for those that are destructive and that promote conflict. There is this amazing social media is so amazing because I can pull up, if I'm feeling distressed, I can pull up a very constructive, a very beautiful message right now and enjoy that. Or if I'm feeling distressed, I can pull up some very negative comments by someone, and even go ahead and post back something also destructive. So I mean, it gives you so much opportunity. In the same way that the Christians of Thessalonica, they have a chance to be in peace, to help each other, and even help those that were coordinating their efforts as well. We have a chance also to do just that, to try to live in peace, not promote disharmony. It can be as simple. It's so amazing. Social media is so amazing because all it takes for me is to forward either a message that is positive or constructive, or I can forward someone that is destructive. It is truly up to me. So it's a great opportunity, and again, an opportunity for me to ingest so much positivity that individuals make available to us as well.
Very helpful. Thank you ever so much, Glaucio. And a heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us for today's live talk, as well as to those who regularly follow our weekly Spiritism Talk series. Your continued engagement is truly appreciated. And we invite you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time for our next live session when Beatriz Lopez will be exploring the topic, what if failure isn't a bad thing? We look forward to having you with us. So, Glacio, before we close, would you please share your final remarks and then lead us in the closing prayer?
Of course, I want to. I'm very thankful to be here and to have a conversation as well. Again, just keep in mind. I mean, people might be different, might have different opinions from us, but again, we're all in this together. So why not try to work it out? And by the way, I love the looking forward to her lecture next week. Yeah, I'll say the final prayer for us. Thank you, Lord, for us. Thank you for the knowledge that Spiritism brings to us, the elucidation. May we make the best use of that knowledge. Thank you also for the experiences that life brings to us. Each one is an opportunity for growth and development. A lot of times, those experiences are so joyful and they give us an opportunity to be so appreciative for all the great things. A lot of times, those experiences are so challenging, but we should also be grateful because there are so many lessons to be learned in those moments of difficulty. May your peace be with us always and inspire us in our moments of challenge and difficulty, and give us strength to proceed and to try to continue on the path of righteousness. So be it.